Welcome to Heat Checks and Hail Marys. This is Mike Cagley, and we have a guest on. Fellow Illini guy Larry Smith will join us tonight. Larry, thanks for coming on and doing a little bit of a special treat in a new format here for us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is always so cool. Cool to see it all the time and be a part of it here. Just got back in from New York. It's still kind of coming down in all kinds of ways from the experience up in Manhattan.
Yeah, and speaking of that experience in Manhattan, that's kind of what we've brought ourselves together for, is to talk a little bit about what is wrong with this year's Illini basketball team. And I tell you what, Illinois was annihilated by Duke. And I don't think Illinois fans were thinking of that at the start of the season. I don't think they were thinking of that in early January. And even with the challenges of the last month, I still think people thought Illinois would at least make Duke work for a victory.
Yeah, Mike, I'll be honest with you. I don't think a lot of fans were thinking of that as they walked into the arena. I mean, the feeling was, hey, look, I don't mind if they lose. Just be competitive. Come back and just, show that you're a shell of the team you were before. Look, this is still one of the most talented rosters in the Big Ten, if not the entire country, right? I mean, you've got four bona fide future NBA players on here. You've got a couple of three really veteran guys as well that have kind of been through the college basketball game. You could talk about illness and injury and all that, but you're not the only team facing illness. This is a Duke team, by the way, without their power forward who's out with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
It could have been worse. Think of that. This is a Duke team that took all their starters out at 6.5 minutes to go in the game, and the reserves outscored Illinois 20-14. So this was just a let's just say it was an ass whipping. I mean, that's all you can say. So,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Larry, when you look at it, what scares me about this is if you start at the second half of the Michigan State game, Illinois was outscored 42-24 in that half. First half of Wisconsin was 47-41. Illinois was outscored. Second half, Illinois was outscored 48-33. Then you end up with the first half of Duke 54-37, and the second half 56-30. In those last five halves, Illinois has been outscored 247-165.
And you want to make it even worse, go back about 8 minutes in that first half. Illinois was up by 15.
Yes.
And saw that lead whittled down. So, I mean, there is something happened in that game, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know if anybody outside the program knows what it is. But you can feel it. Fans sense it. The things that we saw on IlliniGuys.com, the text messages I've received from friends who are Illini fans or just college basketball fans, there's something there. And I don't know if you've got to go, for you Major League Baseball, Major League movie fans, go get Jubu his rum. I don't know what it is. Go burn some incense, call in a psychic. Let's conduct a séance, something. But there's bad juju right here in this program. Suddenly, there's no reason why a coach that's experienced as Brad Underwood with the staff, in terms of assistant coaches that experienced, in terms of Orlando Antigua and Jeff Alexander, two outstanding guys. Man, they are fantastic people, first off. They're great coaches. They're great communicators in what they have done. I can't speak as much for Tyler Underwood and Zach Hamer. Maybe they have a bigger role than they should have. I don't know. We don't know what happens in practice. And then the players themselves, again, there's far too much talent here. There's something wrong. There was a disconnect. Sitting there courtside in that game Saturday night, I'm going to be honest with you. Duke did what they wanted to do. It wasn't like there was any surprise. There was never an adjustment for Illinois. And I think that's the scary part about this, is that, look, we talk about the Oregon game. Let's throw that out. We know now Oregon was a number 9 team, shouldn't have been. Okay. I mean, it was a great win, and it's going to go down as a record in history. Let's just throw that out. But here's an Indiana team that Illinois just weeks ago put the worst loss ever they've ever had at Assembly Hall on that same court on Sunday. They knock off Purdue. So other teams are doing it. Other teams are coming together. Other teams are adjusting. Why isn't this team? And that's what's to your point. It's It's not just the most points given up this century. It's not just the biggest loss in program history. It's back-to-back losses, 20-point losses on back-to-back games. I can't think of the last time that's happened. I haven't researched it yet. Haven't had time to. I should have on the plane, I guess. But, there's a lot here. If you're an Illini fan, there's a lot to be concerned about.
There's a lot to be concerned about. And I'm going to throw in one thing, and a lot of Illini fans will go after me for this. But the team is markedly different since KJ's injury. They were a much stronger team. They were a much more cohesive team. They seem to be playing well together. The defense looks totally different since that time. And again, one can say, well, had he not got hurt and had Tomislav not ended up with the triumvirate of mono, ankle sprain, flu, and Morez with the broken wrist, and of course, then you had Will Riley and you had Trey White and other players with the flu as well. But, Larry, that at some point, there's a root cause underneath all of this. And maybe the injuries just exposed something that might have come up later on. It's hard to know, but as you stated, during every season, people get injured, hurt, sick, whatever, for every team, and it's not been an insurmountable Mount Everest for other teams.
And that's where I think that, and I'm just, same thing. Whoever's listening to this, watching this, you're an Illini fan, you're an Illini staff member. This all comes out of love. I mean, nobody's trying to take you deep. Nobody is against you. We're just trying to figure it out, right? To your point, there are so many other teams and I think that's where Illini fans gave the team a pass through all of that. They gave the team. USC was without KJ. He had the second game of the arm injury. Okay, that's fine. Then, obviously Tomislav didn't look right in the first Michigan State game. Well, he had mono. He was out. Okay, we give you a pass. He comes back from that, and some other guys are out with the flu. Okay, we'll give you a pass. Then he had the stomach bug, and he's out again, and Jake Davis. And so, okay, we'll give you a pass. But that Michigan State game was the one game where everyone was supposed to be back healthy, right? Everyone's back. We're back in place. And that's where, again, that second game, you had the Shannon jersey hung upside down. Like a bad omen at halftime. And the second half was upside down for the Illini on the court, right? I mean, you miss 19 straight shots. You only take one free throw in the final 10 minutes when you're in the bonus. Every foul you're shooting free. So it's things like that are inexplicable. Like, how do you not go inside and get a basket? How do you not do X, Y, and Z? Simple things that laymen see. And that's where I think that's where the fans are at. There's so many other examples. We mentioned Duke missing a key player in the Brown, the power forward who's out with his shoulder injury. You never would have known watching that game against Illinois. You've got Kentucky without both point guards. They got a 7-footer bringing the ball up. The kid Robinson is out with an injury. He doesn't know. They lose at Alabama Saturday by 12, but they were in that game single digits until the end and then free throws. So other teams are finding ways with lineups that are coaches that are not as experienced and rosters not as talented, but they're finding ways to stay in games, to stay competitive. So it goes back to, from a mental standpoint, what is it about this team? What are we missing? And I think that's the question we're trying to figure out. I hope I'm not repeating myself to you, Mike.
No, I think that's true. I go back to inevitably roster building, and I look at the people who were lost. Coleman Hawkins is at Kansas State, averaging 10 points, almost 7 rebounds, and over 4 assists a game. I know that Coleman was ready to be probably on a different team, and I know that probably the coaching staff might have been not necessarily upset about that. But that's a player who, if you put him on this team, it would help you weather some of the injury issues. And the other thing is we probably would have got to see maybe a classic meltdown during the Duke game. But nonetheless, he's gone. Dane Dange's averaging 12 points and 6 boards at Memphis.
He had a double-double Sunday in the win. and they're right. They're
Exactly,
the top
and you
20.
wonder, how good would, that team be when you have Tomislav, Dane, and Morez, 3 deep, who are all 3 really good athletes, good players, and now all of a sudden you have that depth that you're not holding your breath when somebody gets a foul or if somebody's slow getting up from blocking a shot.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Obviously Merez is injured, no fault of his own. What a fantastic play he
Yeah,
made in talking to some staffers before the game. They're hopeful he can be back, even maybe as early as the Big Ten tournament. Don't hold anybody to that, but that's would be almost 3 weeks later. They don't know how it's going to mend, but again, he's a young man, very strong, very healthy. So anything is possible, right?
yep,
There's hope. There's hope there. We will see. But to your point, Ivisic goes down. Now you have to play Benham Rickhouse at the 5. He's not a center, and people complain about his stat line after the game. Well, yeah, those argument that issue, we get it why you're mad, but he also had to play because somebody had to relieve Ivisic and somebody had to come in for him. So to your point, it's one that I've never publicly questioned the roster makeup on this team. But I will tell you what I've thought since we're at that point now in the season, and clearly, whatever reason, injuries, whatever. And again, I'm kind of putting all that aside because everyone has injuries, everyone has illness.
right.
Let's put that aside. You got to find your way through. I do wonder, why would you dismantle what you had left of an Elite Eight team? You have a unit right now, 9 players that you use. Some nights you use them, some nights you don't. Trey White was healthy, and by our reports, the reporting we heard, and yet he didn't play in a couple of games, even after he was past the flu. Yet he was back in the starting lineup again on Saturday.
Right.
So, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn played sparingly, had some nice moments last year in the NCAA tournament. Ty Rogers opts to redshirt because he's not going to have enough playing time because he was a starter last year. He's the last starter remaining. My biggest concern going into the season is that you needed an alpha. And Illinois had 2 of them last year, and that's why they had the run they had. We knew about Terrence Shannon Jr. When he went down with his situation, in steps Marcus Damask. Brad Underwood and the staff made changes after he had his huge game with the booty ball, right, against Florida
Yep.
Atlantic last December at Madison Square Garden, changed the entire season. Because of that, 2 weeks later, Shannon goes on his suspension. Here's Marcus Damask with booty ball. He becomes your alpha. The offense goes through him, and his ego was like a Steph Curry. He didn't care who gets the shots as long as we
Right.
win, right? So you have that where Terrence is your alpha, Marcus is an alpha, veteran guys like Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerrier, even Justin Harmon off the bench, Luke Gooding off the bench. You had veteran guys. And Brad Underwood was talking about getting old. This team isn't old. And I guess I don't understand really why we couldn't try to retain those guys. Like you said, Coleman Hawkins, okay, yeah, Coleman can go a little nuts sometimes, but he's a heck of a basketball player on both ends of the court. How many times did he run down a layup and block it from behind on a fast break?
Yes.
How many, had a triple-double against Syracuse a couple years ago. Could hit a 3. Yeah, he's an enigma. Yeah, he gets a T sometimes, but boy, he filled it. He could defend 1 through 5. He could bring guys together. He wasn't a leader, but he was a very important veteran piece. And I think that's what Illinois is missing right now. And I'm watching that game live at MSG. There was never that player to say, okay, I'm going to go do X to get us to the line. We saw some glimpses early in the season where Kylan Boswell would do that. And I saw him try that in the second half to his defense. He would drive in and try to, double pump and get a guy in the air, get to the line. But we didn't see enough of that. And when he did, it was already in the second half, you're already down by 25 points. We don't have that type of play right now on this roster. That's been my biggest concern since the beginning, and that remains my concern now going into March.
Yeah, and I didn't even get to the fact that Amani Hansberry is averaging almost 10 points a game and 6 rebounds at West Virginia, and even Mr. Moretti down at FAU is at 7 points and 3 assists, and it's not that any of these players is an end all be all player, and I didn't even talk about Sincere Harris, but they understood what Brad Underwood wanted. They understood the offense that he likes to run. They understood his defensive expectations. And when you have that outflow of people, it's a struggle to keep that continuity with the team. And I just think that these players are not plug and play. It's not a fantasy football league. It's not a computer league where one player equals another, because that continuity and human experience and that sharing of tribal knowledge, which sounds crazy coming out of my mouth, but it is important, and it's important in the business world and it's important in the sporting world. And I think maybe some of that people lost sight of.
Well, I mean, to your point, let's take that from last year, right? I mean, going into last season, a year ago, you had Coleman Hawkins, you had Terrence Shannon Jr., you had Ty Rogers, three guys who knew this system. You have Moretti, who didn't play the year before, but he still sat the bench the second half of the season,
Right.
and he was a part of the mix and understood what was going on. He was beginning to emerge. You lose him to a freak injury early in the season, and he comes back later and plays a nice role. You didn't have that this year. You had two guys, one started, and then he wasn't on the team anymore. Now he's remained, Ty's remained engaged, but I think that's the thing right now as you go into this. If I'm to speak to Illinois fans, and I guess on this segment on this podcast that you do so well, I am right. I would say erase these 28 games, put them aside, just throw them out. Here's what you're at. It's the tournament beginning early. It's March beginning early. You have 4 games on the schedule. You will not be favored in at least 3 of them.
Right.
Possibly the 4th in the opener of the Big Ten tournament. You may be favored in the standings against Iowa, but you just showed you've just given up back-to-back nights of more than 50% shooting to other teams. When a team shoots 50%, you lose this season. Michigan State did it. I'm sorry, Maryland did it. Wisconsin, now Duke. They're an offensive juggernaut. You got to find a way to stop them. What are you going to do defensively with this? What are you going to do offensively? My thing is, I'll be honest, I want to see more Will Riley out there. Will Riley, I think Jim Jackson mentioned, who knows this game, underrated as an analyst, in my opinion. Jim Jackson even pointed out he's watched them back-to-back weekends now, Illinois, on the Fox Saturday Night broadcast, that the two guys who can create their own shots here, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn and Will Riley. And to me, I don't know, every time Will came out, I said, why is Will coming out of the game? Now, I don't know coaching. I don't know what they do. I'm just watching. He's the one guy active that Duke had to honor. You could see their body language change on defense when the ball was in his hands. You got 4 games left. I would put Will out there as much as you can. And Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, whatever issue there is, put that aside, put him out there. You've got to put guys out there that if you're not going to play defense, at least score. We got to do something. The problem right now, Illinois, they're not doing anything on either end.
Right, exactly.
They're allowing teams to shoot. I mean, I think Duke was, what were they? Duke shot 56% from the field. That's a season high for an Illinois opponent, right? Now Duke's really good. Let's okay. Yeah. Iowa ain't Duke, and neither is Michigan.
Although Iowa can shoot. That's the one thing they can do.
Although they can shoot. There's no question. But you're without Owen Freeman. You're without your own piece as well. I would, if you're not going to do one, pick one at least. Do one. But the 3-point shooting, I'm sorry. I don't care if guys make it in practice. I watched them in pregame shoot around. They did. They hit 90% of them. Something happens in games that you don't. Duke, Coach Underwood said after the game that Duke was the number 1 team in the nation in 2-point defense, right? And yet Illinois shot 15 of 18 from 2 in the first half.
Yep.
And 83% in the first half and 60% in the game. Well, you shot 0% from 3 in the first half and 8% for the game. 60%, 8%. At some point, let's draw some plays up that haven't been scouted, and let's get to the line more. If you drive, you create contact, you draw fouls, you get to the line. It's what Illinois was doing when they built that lead against Michigan State, what seems like a month ago, but it was just 8 days ago. Right. And then you abandon that in the final 10 minutes, and then we know what happened. So get back to the basics on this. This is still a team that is, again, the talent is still there. the coaches have been in March before. There's no reason why this team can't come up strong, find what they were doing before, and again, start 0-0. Let's try to go 3-0 here going into the Big Ten tournament.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Yeah, I mean, coach has a reputation for maybe being slow to make changes during games, but he does make changes during the season, and he's done that before where he's overhauled the team. I don't know that anybody's ever tried to do it in the final 4 games of the regular season, but he's one of the few coaches who's been able to say, you know what, it's Christmas time, we're going to do stuff differently, and then change up the way a team plays, or do what he did with Domask last year and change the offense based on the horrific situation that Terrence Shannon Jr. found himself in. And it's been really surprising that with the turn on the defense and with the things that are going on with the offense, particularly, um, the bottom line is I don't care what anybody says about this team. They're a bad 3-point shooting team because after 28 games, we have the data that in an 18-team league, they're in last place. So that's not a good 3-point shooting team. I don't care how you want to dice it, slice it, you want to dress it up and show it to everybody. And I think they have to come to the understanding you have to shoot threes to win. I get that, but you don't have to shoot 30. You've got to make those. And Brad Sturdy has talked about, going inside to Tomislav, going inside to, at the time, Merez, getting the ball back out and taking those threes where your shoulders are square to the basket. Maybe that's the type of threes you want to be searching for. The other thing I will say is I would, now Jackson obviously knows more about basketball than I do. I would disagree with him because KJ can get his own shot. And what teams are doing right now is they're running not one, but 2 guys at him, and Illinois has no response. So they're basically running 2 guys at 1 player and then having 3 guys guard 4, and it's working almost every single time. Now, you can say KJ's soft as tissue. I've never been a big believer in the this guy's soft, this guy's not tough, especially as dictated by a 40 to 50-year-old guy who never played college basketball. But I will say that Illinois has to find a schematic response because we have seen this now multiple games, and I expect to see it from Iowa where they're going to take 2 guys and they'll make them as long as they can get them, and they're going to run them at KJ if he has the ball. And if Illinois can't find a way to help him out or find a way to make them pay for that strategy, they're going to keep doing it until the game's over.
Yeah, there's got to be a plan B. I mean, I bet it felt like I saw the same thing over and over again. It was like Saturday night was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. The old saying that, and you want to help, but you can't. You're like, no, no. And I heard somebody on press row, it was halfway through the second half. Somebody said, somebody make it stop. I don't want to watch anymore. This is just, oh my goodness. I mean, it is just, it's like a just this freight train rolling through and you can't stop it. To your point, they would double team KJ and then nobody would react. And the bailout was to Avicic on the arc. And then Duke defense would reset. And then here comes the guy from the wing and he'd hand the ball off back to the top of the key. And now you're 12 seconds into the shot. I mean, it was like rinse and repeat the same thing. And it felt like the same exact, a lot of solo dribbling, nobody moving, nobody picking, nobody screening. It was the same old. You mentioned 3-point shooting. I want to throw something I looked at after the game. And so the numbers will be slightly off because I haven't updated these for post game. Right. Okay. So going into Saturday night's game, Illinois ranked 311th in 3-point shooting. There are 6 power conference teams that shoot the 3 even worse. Okay. Arizona, TCU, Georgetown, Michigan State, St. John's, and Wake Forest. here's the huge difference between those 6 teams and Illinois is that Illinois has attempted about 300 threes more than them. So of these, Arizona is NCAA bound. St. John's about to win the Big East for the first time in 40 years. Michigan State is NCAA bound. So they figured out we don't do this very well.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. That's where for Illinois, if the shot isn't, if you are the best, listen, Michael Jordan was clutch. He had off nights. So if MJ's not clicking, we got to go to Scotty. We got to go to John Paxson. We got to go to somebody else. Do something else if that's not working. But what for Illinois? And now you're seeing the national people mocking Illinois about it, and that hurts me to see that they're saying, yeah, they're just throwing up shots. I mean, we've heard this time and time again. Announcers, they just shoot threes. The Big Ten guys, before they played Minnesota, and they actually didn't shoot threes.
Right.
They got a season low 16 threes. They made 9 of them. Why? They went inside, and when they went inside, they brought it back outside. Now, Minnesota's not Duke.
Right.
Minnesota's not Michigan or Michigan State. I get all. They're not Wisconsin. Wisconsin's outstanding right now. But find something different to do to put the ball in the basket. And that's the challenge here for these next 3 games, next 4 games. Mike, here's my concern. I never thought I would ever say this. Brad Sturdy disagrees with me. I'm concerned that if Illinois only wins one more game, they're in danger of being on the bubble. And if they don't, I don't think they make the tournament. I never thought I'd ever say that because this team is way too good, way too talented. But there's a concern right now. Here's a team that 6 weeks ago was being projected as a number 2 seed. They're now at risk of falling out of the tournament. They've got to figure this out. They're too good. They're too good not to be among the top 68 teams.
Yeah, and again, going back into that root cause analysis I was talking about earlier, when you lose that many players who are contributing at other places, that means the people that you bring in the transfer portal can't miss. And that puts an incredible amount of pressure on a college kid. You know, Kerry Booth certainly doesn't look like the Kerry Booth that we saw at Notre Dame last year. Not certain what's going on there. You know, Kylan Boswell is shooting significantly lower from the 3-point than we've seen, although his defense has been a lifesaver at times for the Illini. I think Jake Davis has actually exceeded my expectations. I've actually been like, holy cow, this guy is better than what we thought. Ben Humrickhouse, look, he definitely doesn't have the strength or the lateral speed that is probably necessary to be a starter in the Big Ten. He's been forced to play more minutes than what you would like. I think if he was in a role with lesser minutes where he comes in for 15 minutes during a game, 18 minutes, I think he's probably a pretty good sharpshooter. Yeah. But he's coming in and playing full court. I mean, look, we saw Cooper Flagg actually outrun him dribbling compared to Ben running. This is not against Ben. It's just Cooper's the number 1 draft pick, but you put guys in a really tough position where they can't miss because you let that continuity walked out the door. If you would look at this as a transfer class and a signing class, when you look at KJ, you look at Tomislav, you look at Morez, that's about as good of a signing class as you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
But when you look at losing all those people and then the transfer class was okay, not exactly what you'd hoped, man, that puts a lot of pressure. So I think the continuity is a big thing. And somehow the biggest challenge I see out there right now is when you're trying to build NIL every year, and that's a new check. So at the start of every season, in the off season, you start off at 0 and you have to start figuring out where these donations are going to come from. And who knows what the total dollar amount is, because though that's not really transparent at any point in the NCAA right now. But now you've got to re-win those people who put their hard-earned money in for a team that they thought at one point was on pace to be at least a 4 seed.
Yeah.
And they may miss, or you end up in the Tom Izzo situation where you have a Big Ten team as the play-in game.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow when somebody wants you to come and sign another check.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing: is that they can still come together and
Yes.
don't give up. Let's hope that they do.
Yes. Any other thoughts in what is going on with this Illini team? Because you were there and you had the opportunity to watch them, and you also had the opportunity with our Illini guys event that had quite a few people there, and many of the Illini guys subscribers are actual boosters.
Yeah.
Any thoughts that you had just listening to the Illini faithful, which I thought it was pretty darn impressive from watching it on television that Illinois from a sound volume, well, at least at the beginning of the game, the Illinois fandom may not have been there on a 1-to-1 match for Duke, but from halfway across the country, their lungs were every bit as good as the Duke fans when that game started. Obviously, they were deflated with what happened. But any thoughts from the fan standpoint from you?
I thought the Illini faithful were outstanding. Illini Nation was huge. Probably 60-40 Duke. There's no shame in that. That's Cameron North. We all know that over the years. Great atmosphere. By the way, if you get a chance to go to Game of the MSG, do that. It was outstanding. I think a lot of the Illini faithful are feeling, just a little demoralized right now. This was not the way they thought things would be going. And that's why I want to encourage everyone, stay with it. It's not done. We saw NC State come out of nowhere last year and reach, it's happened before, but you're a double-digit seed, you move on. There's a much more talented team than any other double-digit seed probably ever in the NCAA tournament. And if they wind up as a 10 or 11 seed, it's not the end of the world. They just got to figure things out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna let Larry go now. I'm gonna wrap up here. But Larry, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate getting your point of view. I know you've got a lot of things going on with the WNBA, et cetera. So it was awesome to get a few minutes of your time.
Yeah, man. Always good to talk to you, and keep up the great work. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you very much. So that was Larry Smith, folks. We really appreciate him coming on today. And of course, if you enjoy this, I'm releasing this as not only a Heat Checks and Hail Marys, but also as a Eye on the Illini. You can follow either podcast and subscribe, whether it's on our YouTube channel or whether it is on your podcast distributor. The more times you subscribe, obviously, if you subscribe, you will get all the information that you need to be familiar with what's going on with Illinois and around Big Ten and sports. We don't always stick to that. And it's really important, if you enjoy this, please grab an opportunity to go to IlliniGuys.com, hit the registration button, and subscribe. $99 a year gets you everything behind the paywall. And the most important thing there, I guess there's two things. One is you get the message boards, which become really important during portal combat and recruiting. Although during the season, they're pretty good to get ideas on who's going to be playing, who's injured, who's out, etc. And you get a community of Illini fans that respond back and forth, and you can ask Larry a question, Brad, Ked, myself, and get some one-on-one contact with the folks who are running the website. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have people come there and join. And of course, the other thing we have is our game room where Illini fans get in there and they watch the game together and they go through the pain, the agony, and the highs and the lows. It's also a great feature that a lot of people choose to use. We would love to have more people join the community. And more important, it's only $99 a year, 27 cents a day. That is something that helps us pay so that we can send Brad Sturdy to New York City. Those are the type of costs that we have to deal with. And certainly as the Big Ten has grown, so have the travel costs that required to cover it. So we appreciate each and every one of you, and we try to do as much as possible to make that $99 a great value for you as well. And I finally want to tell you, tune in to the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular. That is our 2-hour Illini-centric radio show that is on over 20 stations across the state of Illinois. You can go to IlliniGuys.com, hit the radio button up towards the top, and that will take you to each of the stations, what day, Friday or Saturday, they have us on and what time. You can tune in to the station closest to you. The other thing you can do is you can subscribe to the podcast, which also releases, which allows you to listen to it at your leisure. And either way, we would love to have you come and be a part of the Illini Guys experience. With that, this is Mike Cagley, and we will see folks on Tuesday night as we do halftime live. And we also do the Eye on the Illini postgame live. It is a very, very important game in Iowa, one that earlier in the year looked like a little bit of a breather for the Illini. Now it's turned into a life and death style game. It's an important one. So make sure you tune in to us at the half. You can find us on the IlliniGuys.com YouTube channel, or you can find it on X at Mike Cagley, at Sturdy32, at KedPrince4, at Illini_guys. We broadcast on all those. We would love to have you listen in. And of course, give us a follow. If you're an Illini fan, we would greatly appreciate you following us on X, and we'll try our best to keep you up to date. And of course, like everything we do, we try to keep it politics free. So you can just enjoy sports, you can laugh a little bit, and you don't have to worry about all that other garbage. With that, go Illini.